Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, "Neighbors destroyed my fence and moved property lines. They got me trespassed from my own land." At first, with my neighbor, I did not realize they were ever up to something. I just found him to be a little weird and eccentric. I basically ignored him when I could and let him make whatever weird choices that he wanted to make. The whole thing started when one day I woke up and went outside to see that some of my grass has been mowed. About 8 inches on my side of the fence that I am certain could only have happened at night. I did not know why my neighbor felt that mowing in the middle of the night and on my side of the property was the right decision to make. It did not hurt anybody though, so I just let it go and moved on with my life. I knew it was this neighbor because his grass was cut perfectly in line with what was cut from mine. To be honest, I just felt like my neighbor was crazy. Not the kind of bad crazy that you need to be scared of, but actually it turned out he was. He was the kind of crazy that does things like mowing their lawn in the middle of the night. Nothing was damaged either, so I actually forgot about it and went on a business trip. It was when I got back home that I realized something was seriously wrong. In my backyard I have a garden area and right behind it a little shed where I keep all my tools and things. It was also near where he mowed, and you can imagine I was glad none of the garden was damaged from him not seeing what he was doing. The thing was that once I got home, my garden and shed were gone. I don't mean that it was all dirt and destroyed pieces of wood, they had just seemed like they had never even been there. I put my stuff away and go outside to investigate what happened. It felt like there was a glitch in the matrix and maybe they never existed. A quick peek over the fence though let me know that I was right in the fact that they did exist. They were just now on my neighbor's side of the property. I also noticed marks where it was clear the fence was picked up and moved. So he basically moved the fence closer to me and in turn stole some of the land property that was mine. I was really angry and I wanted to just destroy the fence at this point. He moved it and now it was solely on my yard, so I could really do anything I wanted. The only issue was my tools were in my shed. I was not going to play whatever game he was trying to pull. I jumped the fence and got into my shed, which still had the padlock attached to it by the way. I don't know what he was thinking he could do with all the stuff locked in the shed and now the garden looking like it had not been watered the entire week. I have sprinklers set to water them, but he clearly doesn't. So I go into my shed to see what I can use to destroy the fence when I hear the sound of police sirens a minute later. Before I know it, I am being pulled out of the shed by police and put into handcuffs for trespassing. My neighbor is yelling how I am trying to steal from him and that he wants me off of his land. It is pure chaos for a while as I keep trying to speak to the police and explain that it is my property and not his. After about 10 minutes, I am brought back next door on the other side of the fence and let out of the handcuffs by the police officer. Officer, okay, so he did not want to press charges this time. If you are caught trespassing again though, there will be major problems. Me? I did not trespass though. That is my shed and my land. Officer, what are you talking about? It is clearly over there on his side of the yard. Me? If you take a close look, you can see that the fence has been moved recently. And I am sure that any surveyor would look at the land and see that my property extends out to where that shed is. All my tools are in it and even the key for it is in my pocket and upstairs in my closet. Officer, we need to get this all sorted out, but for right now, you cannot just go over there. We will look at the fence and if you can get a surveyor to say that it is yours and prove that the shed belongs to you, then that can be settled. This was not the answers I was looking for, but I understand where they were coming from. It did look like I was in his yard and now needed to get my stuff back. A mixture of evidence that shows the shed and garden being mine, as well as the fence not being on the property line like it should, was not the easier thing to get. A surveyor could not come out for an entire week and I had no idea how I was going to prove the shed was mine. It was not like I labeled my tools with my name or anything. What I could prove was that the shed was in that spot for a long time. If I went and found a map image of my house, you could clearly see the shed being in my backyard. So, once I had all of that, I went to the town court to show them what had happened. In all this time, my neighbor still never showed any reasoning for doing all of this other than he could. I had all this evidence and the only thing he had was the fact that the grass was cut evenly. I did not just want my fence back though, and instead I wanted a restraining order against my neighbor. I even set up cameras that would let me know if he was wandering around my backyard at night again. I told them I did not want this man anywhere near me after trying to steal from me and almost having me falsely arrested. It was granted, and while he did not have to move, he was not allowed to go anywhere near my land. We live in the country, so space between the actual houses is pretty large. There would be no accidental reason that he would have to be so close to me because of how far apart our actual houses are. It is just that one small space by the fence that we share, and I wish I could find a way out of that too. I might build a new shed on the other side of my property just to make sure that I have no reason to be near this crazy guy again. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm curious, if you had an entitled crazy neighbor that would have gotten you trespassed from your own property, what would you have done if you were in OP's shoes? Please let us know in the comments, I am really curious. And by the way, while you're at it, I would also really appreciate if you could like the video, because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is an HOA story, and it is titled HOA Karen fined me $500 for feeding ducks. I covered her yard with bird feed and got her kicked out. I want to start this wonderful and stinky revenge story off by saying that I truly enjoy my neighborhood and I don't think I have some kind of monstrous homeowner association. However, there is one lady that is on the HOA board that is certainly the evil Disney villain here. I live in a horseshoe-shaped neighborhood of double condominiums that are inhabited by primarily senior citizens like myself. There are a few young families, but mostly older folks live here. My husband and I had been in our condo for about 3 years when a new woman moved in about 2 doors down from us. Her name was Debbie and she had a snobby and crass tone to her from the very first day I met her. She was easily my age or older and yet continued to color her hair a fake-looking red and would wear it curly and tall on her head like she never left the 50s. Her excessive eyeliner and overlined red lips were also cringy, that is what my granddaughter called her at least. Again, my HOA is not necessarily full of tyrants and for the most part everyone abides by the rules and keeps to themselves, but eventually some drama ensues with new neighbor Debbie. Everything begins with some ducks. That is right, ducks. At the front and center of our horseshoe-shaped neighborhood is a humble-sized pond that many ducks, geese and other birds choose to spend their time bathing, eating and lingering in. I, personally, think that is cute and I love to watch them float around on the water and tend to their nests on the bank. I had tried to be cordial and make friends with her when I would see her out on our daily walks throughout the neighborhood. She never wanted a partner and would speedwalk with her weights like she was in some kind of competition to avoid everyone else. She also had a little yappy dog that no one liked because she would leave it outside at 4:30 AM and let it bark its ever-loving head off. Her direct neighbor is a friend of mine called Louise, that I play card club with, and she told us about how she attempted to ask Debbie to keep the dog inside that early in the morning, and she proceeded to be rude and shout at Louise, telling her to mind her damn business, and slam the door. Considering everyone in our neighborhood has strived to be polite and help each other, this woman sticks out like a sore thumb among the rest of us. Louise even attempted to take the issue with the dog to the HOA board and found out that Debbie was the newest member somehow. That's just great. Do we need some lady like her handing out fines now? Louise had to drop the issue as she did not want to have more problems with Debbie and her yappy dog. A few months passed and everything was normal, but then spring came and there was an abundance of ducks at the pond. The maintenance crew had forgotten to put the fake floating alligator heads in the water to deter them from taking up residence there. I honestly did not even think that the ducks could be a big deal at all, and for the most part they weren't until an angry Debbie got involved. I had a partial stale loaf of bread that I did not want to go to waste, so I thought I would go down to the pond and toss some of it to the ducks and their babies. My granddaughter and I had a blast handing bread to our feathered friends. They quacked happily and circled around us asking for more until a startling scream erupted and caused us and the poor ducks to jump. To be honest, I thought that she had fallen down her deck steps and broken her hip because the shouting was so uncalled for. Her volume is truly impressive though, because she could be clearly heard from her home, which was about 4 houses north of the pond. "What do you think you're doing feeding those nasty creatures?" she screamed from her wooden deck. Debbie then marched down her steps and stormed towards us, waving her arms at the ducks to startle them, and then she whirled around on us. "Stop feeding them! You need to leave!" She shouted some more. "These animals are not even supposed to be here, and you are only encouraging them to stay and poop all over the neighborhood." I was so stunned for a moment that I did not speak right away. We're just giving the ducks some bread." Debbie did not like that and stepped up aggressively, almost getting in my face. "I don't care what you are feeding these disgusting, disease-ridden animals, but it needs to stop." She pointed at the ducks with her curved, arthritic finger, glaring at them like they had personally done something to her. My granddaughter was about 14 at the time, and she has never been the type to hold her tongue. "You need to get out of my grandma's face right now." She stepped up and wedged herself in between the two of us, firmly standing her ground. "The ducks are not hurting anybody, and you need to be the one that leaves." She raised her chin to Debbie, and this filled the woman with a rage that I could see bubbling up to the surface. "Oh, I see. You have your little granddaughter to stand up for you." She turned on her heel and headed back down the sidewalk to her house, making sure to dramatically step around piles of duck poop that was not even there. "We will see what the HOA says about this," I heard her shout as she stormed off, telling her little yapper to shut up as she approached the back door. I was upset, but certainly not shaken by this woman's grotesque attitude towards the ducks and myself. I was proud of my granddaughter for standing up to her. My son had raised her to be strong and independent. I did not think too much of the incident, but had a good time telling the story to my ladies at the card club. I honestly assumed nothing would come of her threat with the HOA until I received a letter about 2 weeks later, fining me $500 for feeding unapproved wildlife. $500 is pretty steep, especially for tossing some ducks a little stale bread. I could not believe it until I finished reading the whole page and noticed one of the signatures at the bottom was none other than Debbie's. Okay, now she has crossed the line. It's one thing if you want to complain about the whole thing, but do actually fine me for it is asinine. When I called and spoke with another board member, they said that they would not remove the fine. Unlucky for Debbie, I grew up with 3 brothers and they were always trying to prank each other. Something that I remembered my oldest brother doing once was leaving a trail of pig feed to our other brother's truck so that the swine could climb in and make a mess of things. What a good idea. I decided to buy some more old bread from the bakery along with some tasty birdseed and feed. My granddaughter and I went outside very early in the morning and tossed bread all over her yard and made a trail of birdseed that led from the pond to her house. We were not even finished before the ducks were already marching in a group over to Debbie's property, preparing to eat and poop all over the place. We posted up with some coffee and breakfast in my garage and waited. The morning was beautiful anyway and the sunrise was guaranteed to be perfect. What a great day for revenge. It was not too long before the yapper was let outside and you could hear it run back in yipping over the ducks, chasing it from their food and babies. This must have alerted Debbie to something being wrong because it was only a minute later when we heard another impressive scream from her. The words were not really audible and I was laughing too hard to care anyway. She was in her yard shouting nonsense and swinging a broom around for about 20 minutes before she gave up and realized that the ducks were not going anywhere until they were content. The situation tickled me to death, and my granddaughter and I spent most of the day laughing about it, but the revenge was even sweeter than I could have imagined. Apparently, the ruckus that she created, screaming and hitting the ducks with her broom, did not impress her fellow board members or the surrounding neighbors. She was let go from the HOA board and ended up selling her house about 6 months later. Everyone was happy, considering anyone who met her seemed to leave with a bad taste in their mouth. She was rude and cruel and a bad neighbor. Our peaceful residence is back to normal, with happy neighbors and ducks to be fed. Not sure where Debbie moved, but I really hope there is no pond nearby. And the next one is titled "Refuse to be a Decent Human, Lose Your House." It is 2011, my boyfriend and I decided to rent a house with our best friends, an engaged couple with 2 kids. I am changing names here. I am Kylie, my boyfriend is Jim, and our couple friends are Brad and Angelina. Jim, Brad and myself are active duty military. After over a month of searching, we found a really cute house, 1,850 square feet, nice yard, great neighbors, only $1,350 per month. Hardwood except for 1 room, 7 minutes from our base. The landlord is in a different state but tells us she pays one of the neighbors to manage the keys for her. It is a military town and that is not uncommon. We all met up with him, toured the house, decided to sign the lease. We moved in sometime in August. We liked the house, but there were crickets coming into one of the bedrooms through a crack in the windowsill. The landlord didn't want to fix it and said to caulk it. It worked no problem. We noticed the carpet in the living room was a little dingy and asked her if she would mind paying someone to clean it since we moved in that way. We even made a note of it and took pictures when we moved in. She said no, I bought my own cleaner and the carpet lightened a few shades. In October, we went to cut the heat on and it didn't work, so we realized the oil tank was empty. Part of the lease states when we move out, we needed to leave a full tank of oil, which is not really a problem as long as we start with a full tank and use all the oil in it. Call the landlord and ask her to have the oil company come fill the tank, which it is 2011, so it's going to cost $1,200 to do. She says no. We told her fine, we wouldn't be leaving a full tank when the lease was over though. She got mad and said we had to because it was a clause in our lease. We had the oil company provide statements to say the last time it was filled was that prior January and it was empty when they came to fill our tank that month. We filled the tank but the heat still didn't work. It's been 2 weeks and it's really getting cold. We asked the landlord to get a repairman out to the house. Brad and Angelina have 2 small kids that need to stay warm. My landlord took another week to fix the heat and the people that did it were questionable. It worked for a month but then quit. We called in our own repairman to come handle it since the last ones creeped me out and he noticed some major issues with the chimney that needed attention right away. Like, it was unsafe to run the heat at all. The damn thing was about to collapse. We let her know, emailed scans of the paperwork from our nice Honeywell tech and 2 quotes from contractors to get the work done. It is going to be $3,000 to $3,500-ish. It is an emergency repair. At the point it is December and we are really cold. We were using space heaters, the kids have chest colds and Angelina is ready to fly into our landlord's state to handle her physically. I mailed all of that information to her, Angelina's bodily threats omitted, with a signature confirmation and a letter stating the issue. A few days pass and nothing from our witch landlord. I got onto Google and read the Landlord-Tenant Act and local landlord court cases just to see if I had a leg to stand on. I also spoke to my JAG, whose brother happened to be a real estate lawyer who was also friends with my next door neighbor. The keyholder dude who, surprise, never got paid to watch the house and also decided to come over for dinner with all of us at their place. He gave me some really good info. The next morning I called our landlord and told her, "Look, you get this repair done or I will condemn the house and not pay a dime of rent until it is done." She says she doesn't believe me. I overnighted a certified letter to her explaining the issue and requesting the repair be started within 5 business days since it was an emergency and I had already reported it a week prior. 5 days go by, nothing. At this point I am ready to walk out on the lease but don't have quite enough legal issues to back that up, so Jim and I requested 20 days of vacation from the military. I drafted a letter to landlord telling her she had 10 days to get the repair done or we would terminate the lease, and we would not be paying rent while the heat was in disrepair. I cited the previous letter and included her signature confirmation for it also. 4 days before we go on vacation, I overnighted and signature confirmed the letter. 2 days before we are set to go on vacation, I called a city building inspector, set an appointment, he came and condemned the house. It took him less than 15 minutes to decide. Brad and Angelina took off to Angelina's mom's house and Jim and I headed out to spend a few weeks in warm sunny Florida with his Cuban family. The food. We prorated rent for every day the house was condemned. I called the building inspector every few days to see if the work was done. He also demanded that my landlord do a few minor electrical repairs. Several days have gone by. I spent half that month's rent on good food, liquor and Disney World tickets. On the 6th day in Florida, the landlord calls me threatening eviction. I told her to please take me to court because I was ready to embarrass her. I cited the Landlord-Tenant Act, told her I was going to sue for travel costs to Florida, hotel costs, and at that point she was already looking at $850 and it was just going to get more costly. Long shot, but I was mad. I also said we were prepared to just walk out if it wasn't done by the time the certified letter stated it should be. Again, I was not kidding. I had already reserved a U-Haul. Oh, and she should be reimbursing me for that $1,100 in oil I hadn't been able to burn. She said fine and finally replaced the chimney 2 weeks after the place was condemned. My neighbor told me she had to borrow money from her family to get it done. Not my problem. She also told me I was a horrible person who was torturing her and her 5-year-old who were victims of domestic violence. She also told me we were only slightly better than the last tenants who she thought were black by how terrible the house looked when they left. Okay, wow, a slamlord and a racist. I should play the lottery. I'm sorry for your situation, but your husband has been a douchebag to you since you got together. How do I know? Turns out one of my supervisors is friends with her old supervisor and he and other members of her chain of command had responded to fights where her and her husband hit each other. Apparently the husband is a drunk too. They tried to get her to leave him, but she is just as bad. She busted out his windshield one time and burned all his stuff another. Turns out she got a general administration discharge. She seemed so nice and sweet when we were getting ready to sign that lease. I still cannot believe what a bucket of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs she turned out to be. Whatever, we came home to a house with functioning heat. Brad and Angelina decided not to move back in, but that was all cool with Jim and me. We notarized an agreement between us and told them we totally understood and would take over the rent. Missed them after they left though. Later on in March, a realtor knocked on my door and said he wanted to show the house to a couple. I said, "You have the wrong place, buddy. I'm renting this right now." He's like, "No, the owner wants a short sale, hopefully by July." I explained I had no notice and was a little confused, but it was okay. He was very uncomfortable and unhappy to have walked into a situation where a tenant didn't even know he was coming. I told him it was totally fine and went on to divulge some details about this new client. He was pretty appalled. He leveled with me. It is a cute house, but really only worth $90K due to the market crash. It had last sold for $124K according to Zuela. She's asking for $120K and on the verge of foreclosure. Seriously? I let the couple and realtor in the next day, didn't worry about it after that. He came to take detailed pictures so he wouldn't have to bother me with flaky potential buyers. He was so nice. I let him help me find a new house to rent when my lease was up. We are still friends on Facebook. Then in July, the realtor called me and asked if he could show the house to a client. Absolutely. I cleaned and made sure I looked nice for her visit, and when they got to my house I noticed the lady was black. And she wanted to rent. I said, "Ma'am, call me later today and don't tell anyone." She did. I told her what my landlord said about how she couldn't believe her past tenants were white because they left their house trashed when they left. I said, "I don't think this is a good house for you. I know a great guy who is renting out his beachside condo for the next year while he goes out to Africa. Why don't you call him?" I text his listing to her, she calls him and ends up renting his house. None of that is really revenge. Before we moved out, Jim and I cleaned the house. We left the carpet sparkling clean, had professionals come in and do it, paid a gardener to come in and make the yard spiffy, patched up some small nail holes and even painted some window trim that was chipped when we moved in. We basically left it better than we found it. We had already repainted 3 bedrooms in flattering colors when we first moved in. That was approved by the landlord, no problem of course. We took pictures before and after we moved in. A month goes by, we are all settled in our new condo and she didn't give us a dime back in frickin' deposit. $2,400 down the damn drain, plus the cost of little repairs we made out of pocket so we couldn't have to deal with her crazy ass. I was angry. I began organizing to go to court and then suddenly Jim is told he is deploying soon. The F. A week goes by and also I am pregnant. Which we were casually, not trying, but trying to do. We were happy about that part, but I was puking every day, twice a day and emotional. Then Angelina calls me and guess who is on Craigslist slinging her crap hole slum? My landlord. I lost it. I got on the same forum her ad was on and posted about the house, every single problem we had, every phone call, every snotty email, how many weeks we went without heat, the crickets, landlord's messed up relationship with her off and on again husband, the oil tank and the racist comments. I never said don't rent or buy, just shared my experience as a tenant. I didn't name any names, but I did link her ad. Received 7 emails thanking me, stating landlord seemed really nice on the phone, but they would be dodging that bullet. Their house foreclosed a few months later. We just took Disney outside for a little bit, and now the grooming starts all over again. Right, Disney? Licking a lot. You like to lick, right? Right, Disney? Boop, 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 boop. Yo. That's always just the best feeling. Just imagine they had that, they would sell something like a sand cat tongue at the beauty aisle of supermarket or something. Just so you can groom yourself as a human. Right, Disney? Always interesting for me how cats groom themselves. I think sometimes, and then there's like at the beginning I did not even know what they were doing, but basically they like make their paws wet and then it's like they're washing their face basically, right, isn't it? That's so cute. Very cute. Boop boop. So Disney, you have any final words for the YouTube audience? Seemingly not today. I gotta say though, she's much more talkative, likes to chat a whole lot more in the morning rather than in the evening. I noticed that already. Right, Disney, you don't want to chat at night, you just wanna just wanna chill and be left alone, right? Okay guys, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow. By the way, if you have a cat yourself, I'm curious, does your cat like belly rubs? Because I've heard that some cats, they don't really like it, but Disney doesn't really seem to mind. So, okay, Disney. Okay guys, see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.